Bike Shop Radio was never really about bikes. It was and is more about the conversations that happen in the bike shop amongst the tiny crew of people hunkered down for long hours in a single room. We are obsessive weirdos and we can't help it. These are the conversations that happen at 718 Cyclery in Brooklyn, New York. Okay, so this is Joe and here with Hope. And this is Bike Shop Radio, and this is an emergency episode. I know we haven't done them in a little bit, and it gets busy in the summer in the bike shop. But we just felt that we couldn't let the events of the day or the last few years go by without this emergency episode.
Right, not a day longer.
Yeah, who's going to die today that we're going to miss? What rock star will die today and will be that far behind?
Yeah. This is a topic of conversation around here because obviously we're hitting that stage, and there are articles about it too, like in that stage where all these people we grew up listening to are now senior citizens, and you know, things are happening.
Yeah, we talked about this. It's like the killing season, and I think that, you know, I think it seemed to have started with David Bowie kind of opens it up in early 16. January 2016. Right. I think that was that opened the door. I mean, certainly, if you look at Wikipedia and lists of people who have died, it's massive, and we certainly don't want to discount other genres of music or other folks around the world. No. But we're talking mostly about Western European rock guys, essentially, right? Is that what this is going to be?
Right. And I think too the two big deaths that happened before that, you know, the Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson, were kind of just weird circumstances. What's starting to happen now that we're referring to
are natural deaths.
Right.
Or natural aged deaths.
Right.
Not really natural deaths.
Right. Where you're seeing, I don't know if anybody's ever looked at these things, they're so horrible. Like the death pool on like if you look up death pool, you'll see there's like a ranking of celebrities.
Oh my God. No, I haven't seen that.
People, yeah, I mean, there's, you know, it's kind of interesting. You know, you'll see Kirk Douglas at the top of it every single year. But you're starting to see more rock stars in it than ever before. And I remember looking, I was going, oh my God. And of course they had, you know, well, we'll get to it, somebody who I really love on there, who's Joni Mitchell, and I was like, don't even do this.
And if you start thinking I was thinking all the way back and trying to go back to okay, soldiers come home from the war, World War II, British soldiers, and have children. Those children are about 15 in 1960, 15 to, you know, whatever. Those become the rock stars, that first age. So you're thinking, all right, born in, you know,
those guys are born, then they create Pink Floyd.
Right. Yeah. But then those guys, so let's say they're 20 in 1960. So how old are they now? That's, you know, they're 20, 40, 30, 40. You know, they're
you're talking
70,
like most of the
they're in their
80s. They're are in their late 70s.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly
heading on into the 80s. They're like right there.
So it's that late 70s kind of period where that rock star who was 20 years old in 1960 in 2020 will be 80. Right, so we're in the killing zone right now, the death zone.
Yeah, Ringo's going to be 80 next year, everybody. That's insane. Ringo.
He might be the poster child for our demographic of how we march it along, like the Ringo factor. Older than Ringo, younger than Ringo.
It's true. Yeah, he's a good demarcation point. And I also think he's going to live to be 150.
The last,
so he's still going to be taking out his all-star band,
and dancing on the other three's graves.
Yeah.
No disrespect intended to Paul McCartney.
No. That's my other guy. But I, you know, the other demarcation point for me was Chuck Berry just died recently, and he was part of the triumvirate of the rock and roll inventors, right? You got Little Richard, you got Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry, and I was wondering which one? I can't believe these guys are all still alive.
Yeah.
And so when he passed away, it's like, okay, now we're heading into the zone.
Yeah, it's a final approach. We're on final approach because these guys aren't, generally they didn't live healthy lives to begin with. So the fact that they are approaching 80, is a miracle of modern medicine.
Right.
The Rolling Stones and all those folks are certainly.
and touring, which is insane. But we're also seeing the other telltale sign was all the retiring. It's like Elton John, the last tour, Paul Simon, the final tour, and they're all kind of and I don't even mean this in a bad way. They're all kind of croaking out the vocals on stage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just not the same.
The one person who missed that is David Crosby, this is so crazy. This guy has abused himself endlessly for years, and he's almost 80, right? Mess. But
like
he can still
now.
sing. Yeah. And I can attest to that from having seen him. He can still sing. He's still making pretty decent records. Anybody who wants to check it out, it's just incredible.
I saw that thing on CNN when they talked to Graham Nash, and like it was like this kind of documentary, and the person asked Graham Nash, what would you like David Crosby back in your life? And he's like, no. I just, God knows what happened, and maybe it was a series of events, but you would think these guys would want to get back together to cash it in or to do whatever, but absolutely
right. Let bygones be bygones. But listen, Marcy on his grave is going to be like, no, and maybe it's a good thing. Like, I'm not, we're not reuniting the Smiths.
I always held off for a Clash reunion. I always thought they would kind of do something. I always thought that, hey, these guys are going to be old and they're going to do something before Joe died.
They kind of caved a little bit because he performed with Mick Jones.
Yes.
It was some benefit thing.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
But yeah, that would have happened.
Yeah, they would have realized that money is a little more, money's thicker than all this stuff. I mean, they would have figured that out. And then, in 2016, I mean, that was a tough year because that was David Bowie in January, Prince that April, and George Michael on Christmas of 2016. Those are three huge losses. I mean, George Michael was ill.
Well, he was, I'm going to call myself a mega fan because I absolutely was.
Yeah.
He hadn't been well. He was in the hospital and they were really evasive about what was wrong with him.
Oh, his weight, and there was all kinds of pictures of horrible paparazzi pictures of his weight.
And so I would always wonder about him, I was a paid up member of his fan club, which was, and just for the record,
to be in the
fan club. Shit fan club.
Of all the fan clubs you've been involved in?
I know. You know why? Because I just wanted to have the inroad to getting tickets really quickly, which was an effective tool as it turned out. But it's like $50 a year. I did this for a few years.
And you got a discount or something?
Get this, you would get a gift a year, and it would be like some letter opener, some shit thing that cost them nothing to make.
Right.
And he was on really Twitter really briefly, and the fan club was like, oh yeah, finally, George is taken to it like a fish to water. So he sent out like a handful of tweets and then just sort of stopped.
Wow.
And so, you were wondering, then you heard he was like working on all this stuff. I was shocked. That was one of the ones where it felt kind of personal.
Yeah. And what was kind of weird with that, I thought too, is that I remember like this is dumb, but he was on the first Carpool Karaoke with James Corden.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And, certainly that thing has taken on a life of its own TV show, but he was in the first one. And if you watch it, and please look it up, it's even if you don't like James Corden or don't like the format, it's really endearing. Like, even I've had people in the shop here that really didn't like Carpool Karaoke, all these things, and just kind of got a Jumbo, got a little laugh out of it, like, aw, because it's really endearing, and you can really see George Michael, like the human side of it. And then, once he died, all these things came out about all the work he did with the homeless and all these like anonymous kinds of good deeds that he did. And I became a bigger fan in death. I listen to it here more. Although they're using Freedom in like a T-Mobile commercial right now, which really annoys me. But and then Prince. Prince was, I remember Alfred was like, oh, it wasn't drugs. I'll bet you it wasn't drugs. I'll bet you he was poisoned by his doctor. Yeah. And I was like, no. We had a long bet, and eventually I won the. That was 2016. Yeah. I mean, how do you recover from a year like that?
It was, and that one also incredibly shocking and just not. He's to me especially, at least with David Bowie because David Bowie wasn't an earthling, so he had the forethought to make his final piece of work and then go to his next place the next day. Who else is ever going to be? I mean, but Prince was still in the midst of doing all these things. He had only just started writing a book, which is out, I think, in a month's time, which only, of course, features the early part of his life.
Does it get to the page where he died and it kind of like scribbles off the edge, like as he was writing it?
I know, and to me that's really disappointing. But the other thing, this is the weird part of it, is that the guy who's taking care of all his archival releases.
Okay.
So one of the coolest things is like the people who were, since Prince has passed away. and is jamming with Jimmy and Janice. You know, and that was there anyway. They've released a lot of stuff that he had in his vaults, and Prince literally had vaults,
like a real vault with a big twisted wheel.
And he recorded. He was a maniac. You know, he recorded every freaking day. He had particular engineers on call. He was just driven.
Particular doctors and pharmacists on call
driven.
too.
It was like his lifeblood was just to record and record and record. So there's tons of stuff. So they're starting to kick a lot of it out, and they're putting out this big deluxo version of 1999. So happy birthday to me.
Now, is this his family? Was there a controversy when he died? Because weren't there
there's
kids
controversy
and there's
about the
brothers
money.
and yeah.
I don't know how the money was distributed. All I know is from a fan standpoint, we've gotten like lots of cool things, right? Now the crazy part was like years ago Prince said, yeah, my vaults are full of stuff, but no one's ever going to hear it until after I die. And I actually thought at that time, wow, I'm not even going to be alive to hear all this great Prince music, because you just assumed he was just going to live.
We're going to grow old together. Prince.
I did. I know we talk about Prince a lot on here, but it's true. But he's been very sensitively honored since his passing.
Yeah, you always when artists pass. I remember again after Joe Strummer died, like 2 or 3 years later, there was like a Nissan Rogue commercial that was using a Clash song. I forget the song now. It's just like, you know, it's like the money grab from the estate.
I remember hearing Train in Vain in a commercial.
It might have been that. I don't think it was, but it was something. I remember cringing, like, oh my God. Again, not that the Clash or the sanctity of anything, but like, you think if anyone would sell out, maybe it wouldn't be them, you know, but maybe it would be them. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I don't think that would happen either. Like,
so then, like, this also shocked me too. Tom Petty, it was 2017. That was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Is that crazy? I thought it was like, if you said, hey, when did Tom Petty die? I'd say, last summer.
Oh,
2018. Like right now we're in 2019.
It's because he's so alive in the shop.
He's alive. Yeah, he's never been more alive in the shop. I can't believe it's more than 2 years.
Isn't that crazy?
No, it's gonna be 2 years on October 2nd.
Yeah, I think I'd only been here a few months, and like Andrew was the one who broke the news to me, and I remember driving somewhere.
I remember driving somewhere and the news broke in the shop, and I was getting texts and emails and texting you like, oh my God. And you know, I think, and it also opened up that whole world of like, what monster doesn't like Tom Petty, right? I mean, that was the whole like. It's true. I don't want to know the person
gauge on how human somebody is.
Right. How could you not like? I mean, understanding maybe not enjoy. I mean, but how could you like actively hate? Like, oh, Tom Petty sucks. Like, what monster says that? Like
nobody. You can.
Or no one that we want to know.
You can understand it in the context of any other musician why somebody might hate the Beatles. Get it, right?
Yeah. Me and Max had a great conversation yesterday about like I was like I am not a Beatle apologist, but they were pretty innovative. Compare, and I would say, kind of like the Baseball Hall of Fame, like you compare them to their peers at the moment. Look what the Beatles were doing compared to the Thamesmen, or they were just
and they were the blueprint for how a rock band should behave.
Right, and they
or like because everything from, and of course we could reference the perfect Simpsons episode with the B sharps. Anybody who hasn't seen it, just the artistic pursuits, and then all the stuff outside,
the altercations and
the Maharishi.
Yeah, absolutely, and I the conversation that ended with Max is an employee here. I don't understand why anyone like really gets why people like fall over the Beatles so much is what he said. And I said, my mom was a teenager screaming at the airport, and that's kind of where I got it from. Right. And you kind of I'll bet you that almost any person walking down the street could know the lyrics to 50 Beatles songs. Like ask an average person to what are the lyrics of. It's just ingrained in our culture, and there was something about them. Obviously, I mean, we're not here to describe how great the Beatles are. But
I know it's true. It's true. I think I don't expect somebody young to necessarily get into that. It used to be a rite of passage where like a guy would hit a certain age and he'd discover Zeppelin. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. And it was just no matter what year it was. It's like, and it happened to my own brother. It's
happened
to
me too.
Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Okay, and with women, I think it's more like I can remember, and I'm definitely, I didn't become conscious of the Beatles until after they were done and all that stuff. But I can remember sitting in my junior high library with this gang of other girls who also loved the Beatles, and it's all we used to talk about, like years after that. But I think when people criticize, overrated, whatever, chances are they influenced a band you like.
Right.
Once or twice removed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so they filtered in the same way George Washington was the first president, it kind of filtered down.
Right, right.
That type of thing. So yeah, people can say, and look, that stuff's overplayed, and I've loved it too much, and I don't really listen to that anymore. But yeah, I mean, we can
on Sunday mornings. I used to have to drive around to do lacrosse or whatever, and it was my like 20 minutes to listen to radio, like car radio. And there was this, there's still a show. It's Breakfast with the Beatles. It's on WNEW, and it's just like what they. Like the stuff they choose to play, a lot of it is like, I guess the Beatle fan club every Christmas would send out a recording.
They're crazy Christmas
They were
records.
kind of nuts, yeah. And like to hear those was kind of neat, and maybe there were some live versions, but it just seemed like kind of a rehashing of a lot of like. But anyway, this isn't about the Beatles. This is about death of a celebrity.
Is there who like would you think would really set you off as far as being
the only
most upset?
The only celebrity who's ever died, and I was kind of upset, was MCA. That was the only celebrity where I was wow, that was a big part of my life. That was a big voice that's not there anymore. That was the really only, whenever celebrities die, and I hate to say, it's like, whatever. But that was the only celebrity that I've been like, wow, because Tom Petty, there's a lot of stuff I hadn't listened of his. So now, it's as if he's still producing albums, the stuff from 2013 and 14. It's like, I never heard those before. So he's kind of was always either always alive, still alive to me, or always dead to me. But yeah, because I never touched him or had a poster on my wall. Right. But MCA was just Beastie Boys were an important part of my growing up.
Yeah.
And I remember when Whitney Houston died in the old shop, Alfred used to work here. Alfred got really upset. And I thought he was kidding. Like I couldn't believe how upset he was about this celebrity dying. And he was really upset. And it really struck me like, wow, she really did affect. I mean, she died of unnatural causes. This isn't like, we're not talking about her today. She, died not because of old age. We'll just leave it at that.
Right. That's, I think,
but he was really upset. How about you?
Those things
Prince,
where it's
Prince
like locked into, this part of your childhood where it's like it's such a cliche to say, oh, you feel like a part of you's died. I will say, the Bowie thing, I wasn't shocked. I did shed a tear for that. Prince as well. Prince was shocking. Prince and George Michael both. I genuinely cried about those just because it is something, you feel like something's really been lost. But the weird thing too is I remember crying about Amy Winehouse, and not because I loved her. I'd seen her play a couple of times. I mean, I liked her, but just the trajectory of her life made it incredibly sad.
Right. The
whole story, and so that one too. That was I didn't expect to feel that way about it, but and I would imagine other people did too. It's like, wow, this shit didn't have to happen, and it just seemed all the more kind of tragic, I guess.
Yeah, and then then 2018, I'm sure there were plenty of things that plenty of deaths that didn't fuck. But coming into 2019, this last 2 or 3 weeks, you have Eddie Money and you have Rick Ocasek.
Yeah, more
and
child.
Right, and certainly like maybe not the Mount Rushmore of. I mean, these are all A-list celebrities, but you know what I'm saying? It's like,
but we had their records. I mean, like they were definitely ingrained. Especially, I think these artists that came up when there weren't all these places you could listen to music. It's just radio,
and playing live,
record, or
hitting the club scene in Long Island. Eddie Money was described as once by Alfred as one of the 5 pillars of Joe Rock. So I kind of owned it. I mean, I'm the one that usually says when you listen to 2 Tickets to Paradise, there's a whole bongo like track in there.
Bongo solo.
But not even a solo, but it's just playing while they're singing. And you may have to have the right kind of stereo, or maybe only I could hear it. But there's a whole bongo, like not even a solo, but just playing along in the background.
Folks, unseen layers in these songs, and also, that we never thought.
Remember that was the Geico commercial 3 or 4 years ago where he came out and did it was the Eddie Money travel agency, and he looked pretty bad. He looked pretty rough.
Well, when you do that Rockstar thing where they're still kind of dyeing their hair till the very end.
Right.
I always think of Joe Perry and Steven Tyler. It's like,
or
Paul
Rod
McCartney
Stewart.
Stopped doing it.
Yeah.
God bless him.
I want to look just like the poster as long as possible. But he still got the spiky hair.
Beck, Jeff Beck still looks like a 60s housewife. It's just, sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, with a big mop. And then, other minor, and I was going over the list, and even minor folks that died this year. You have Johnny Clegg, who I went through a Johnny
Right.
Clegg thing. Daryl Dragon, who you taught
That
me
made
about.
me really sad. Yeah.
And then Peter Tork of the Monkees. I mean,
Yeah.
these are
That
just.
was
I mean,
also
all these
surprising.
stars, big and small, are just going to start going.
I know, and it's like it's impossible to get used to, but yeah, it is definitely, there's no sort of replacements for those people. It's just kind of,
Right.
especially since rock music doesn't
Right.
seem to matter anymore.
Right. And we also talked about, like, on this particular episode, to not talk about who the people that should be dead and aren't. We don't want to be mean-spirited about this.
No,
I mean,
not at all. Nobody should be dead. There's some people who should stop making records, but that's true regardless of what age they are. There's people who are 20 years old who I think shouldn't make records anymore.
Right. Did you hear Colin's new band is called Tog or Togs?
Togs,
Yeah.
like TOG.
TOGS, and I think he said it's a slang for like swimsuit in New Zealand or something like that. And
Oh, you know what
it
it
means
is?
clothing
clothes,
too,
yeah,
right?
your
Because
togs.
that's what Max
Yeah,
was
I've
saying,
heard
that
that
togs are in
before.
English,
Yeah.
and in New Zealand, I think it
Okay.
means more about like
As long as
swimwear.
it's easy to Google. I mean,
Well,
I
that's what I
guess
said. I said,
that's-
"What's the website?" You know, Togs.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like,
Because
"It's
there was
Togs
a band
band."
called Trogs,
Right.
as we all know. There was also a really bad horror movie called Trog.
Oh
just in
gosh!
case anybody's
So if you're out there,
interested.
listen to High Falls, which is the old version of Colin's band. The new version is Togs.
Togs. Yeah,
making
they're
some
they're
great
taking
music.
it to another level.
I take it to a different level. Not you
You get a new name, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Sting was just Gordon Sumner, right? And then
Right.
he became Sting.
Right,
and
maybe
look
this will
what
do it for him.
happened.
I think it's more of a lateral move for them. I don't think it's more of a step up. I think it's just more of a lateral move. And I think when you looked up High Falls, there's a song from I think it's an Allman Brothers song. So yeah, with them, I don't know if they
That's another
want.
one, yeah. Greg Allman. That made me sad too. 'Cause I
Yeah,
really
yeah. We
like
had a little
him.
thing in the shop with Greg. We had a T-shirt. We had a T-shirt made up of I'm No Angel, which is probably one of the worst videos ever kind of put on TV. It ends with like a hanging. You know, there's like a fight and there's like there's like girls
Of
fighting
its-
over
of
each
its
other.
time. Yeah,
It's
you
very of
can
its
say
time.
that.
It's like a comical hanging at the end of it. It's kind of creepy.
Nothing like a comical hanging.
He the great line in is "Let me show you my tattoo," and of course the Allman Brothers all have unique like mushroom tattoos, and that's like their little brother, whatever it is. Again,
Right.
I'm not speaking about. I'm not an Allman Brothers expert. This isn't a podcast about how much I know about the Allman Brothers. However, I know that they all have the same tattoos, and I always felt that line was like the most crass, like picking up someone in a bar, like, "Hey, you know, the people that have tattoos that are dying for you to ask them about their
Yeah,
tattoos."
don't ever do that,
Right.
anybody. Yeah.
So we had a T-shirt made once, and it was said, "Let me show you my tattoo," and with our logo, and it sold really well. Most people didn't realize what it was for, and we ended up selling out of that
We should
T-shirt.
have like sold them outside when the Allman Brothers were doing their stands at the Beacon
Oh,
Theater.
right. Let me show
That
you my
would have gone
tattoo.
down really well. That's a
Also,
missed
the other thing
opportunity.
that was really funny about that song, there was a woman who worked here named Christina. There's a line in the song that said, "Let me start a fire in your heart," and she always thought it was "Let me start a fire in your car," which we thought was like a really funny, like creepy
You thought
way
it was,
that.
did you think it was like some Southern thing?
Oh no! That he was going to get back at her. Like, "I'll show you. I'll burn your car. Let me start a fire." And when you start listening to that song and think of that line, it always sounds like that line.
That's super
Let me
weird.
start a fire in your car. I think she may have lived in her car for a little while.
Yeah, that was her and Paranoia. I think Greg was married like 6 times. Sometimes, like, yeah, he just like.
Was it album share All Man and Woman or
Oh,
all?
all man and woman.
Yeah, All Man and
I
Woman.
know.
I think Alfred actually has that.
I
album.
have it too on vinyl, and I have to say, yeah, it's a mess. But Cher was in her disco period in the late 70s, and she had a song called "Take Me Home." That's still a real disco classic. I love it. But on the B-side, there was this song called "Too Far Gone," and back then, like, I would squeeze the life out of any record I had. I used to play all the time, and the whole song was about Greg Allman. He was just another boy out of Georgia playing in a rock and roll
Right.
band, and it's awesome. Anybody who wants to look for it.
Well, to tie this all together is that Greg Allman has a great version of "Rain," the Beatles song "Rain," like a very gospel-y version that I heard on that show I was talking about earlier, Breakfast with the Beatles. That was a really cool thing to talk about. So I think looking forward to like what we have to look forward to in the next couple of years, I think is a lot more death and destruction. I mean, I don't want to put names to.
Yeah, I know. As I say, like for
One of the
me,
Rolling Stones we've talked about, like that, the probabilities of
the
one of them
aging
going.
process is what it is. That and yeah, I mean, these things are inevitable, and now in the social world of social media, the outpouring, you kind of we can only imagine that I hope Bob Dylan lives to be very, very old, but I mean, what
God.
that's going to be like.
And I'm looking at your notes, Hope, and you have things like Aretha.
Oh yeah,
Scott Weiland. Yeah, we just have.
Scott.
This was like the first podcast that we've actually. I did some notes and Hope took some notes to actually be prepared and not just.
Yeah, we couldn't believe just kind of how it's really escalated. It used to just be all these old movie actors and actresses from the 30s.
Rock Hudson.
Yeah, right. But and Doris Day died this year, but it's kind of like
right. It was like mostly it was my parents' celebrities, and now it's my celebrities.
Yeah, and your parent, Neil Diamond's 78 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's kind of.
It's the march towards it's relentless. Like Neil Diamond, he's kind of out of public light. Didn't something happen?
He retired.
I think something like maybe
he can't really sing anymore. I thought he did like the final go round as far as touring, right? Your mom would know.
Yeah, and then we've always had artists who should be done touring, but still kind of are out there.
Yeah, I love Paul McCartney. Anybody who's listened to this knows, but I mean, the past few years, the vocals, not great, not awesome. A little bit of a jukebox.
Yeah, and things like even David Lee Roth, when you listen to his vocals now, it's like a whisper compared to a jet engine. And it just doesn't, I mean, I don't know what happens when you get older. I mean, I know what happens when you get older. I feel it every day. But with your voice, and how does your voice age, and how do you,
clearly,
is it something where you've trained it or you've worked on it all your years and you can still belt it out when you're 75?
Right. Aretha could still sing pretty well at an older age. And there's anybody who's heard of this old R&B singer, Betty LaVette, she's got to be pushing 80 and she sounds amazing. Yeah, and David, but then you look at David Crosby, once again, a bit like we're saying, abused himself and still sings like an angel. Rod Stewart could still kind of sing a little bit.
Yeah. All right, well, that's, I guess we need to wrap it up. Any final closing thoughts here? Any more death people on your list here that you want to just call out or shout out to?
I hope that everybody, I hope Joni Mitchell lives forever. And that's...
I've gotten into Joni Mitchell, but I made Kat laugh the other day because someone was complaining like, "Wow, I just don't like the bass," and I was like, Jacko's fart bass,
Jacko.
and that made Kat laugh so hard. so I use that line a lot. I mean, I like Joni Mitchell, I like Jacko and the bass sound, but when you describe
I call it
as
more
a
rubbery bass. I would never call it a fart bass.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I would call flea. Okay.
Fart bass.
Yeah, that's just like.
Oh, we heard what was it yesterday? There was we got to tell you one more thing. Yesterday, we got to talk about. So yesterday, there's 6 people that work in the shop, and what we had decided the day before. There's a night when me and Chambo work together, and me and Chambo are of a certain age and appreciate a certain kind of music that was made in a certain decade, the 90s. So we decided that Thursday we were going to put on the worst 90s playlist we could possibly find, and we were going to play it during the day when everyone was there, and everyone had to endure it. And it was a test of wills to see who could outlast whom. Everyone had 3 passes where you could guess, or you could veto 3 songs. Everyone had the opportunity to veto 3 songs. Personally, since I'm here 14 hours a day, I'm like, well, my vetoes aren't worth as much in the Electoral College as Chambo's vetoes. And I was like, I'm going to end the day. I'm going to keep, it's like leaving it on the field. I'm going to end the day with all 3 of them. And I didn't. And my 3 that I used them on, and I'm proud. I used Tears from Heaven came on. I couldn't run to the computer fast enough. And then 2 Aerosmith songs from like Armageddon or something,
Was a Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Was crazy.
I just can't. And it was at 8:30 when the last one, and we closed at 9, and I almost made it till 9. Everyone else had cashed out, and Kat ended.
See, I didn't cash out. I just decided, on the worst song ever recorded in the history of music, which of course, as everyone knows, I don't even have to say it. That would be Mambo No. 5 by Lou Bega.
Whose name is David Lubega.
Yeah, I just
But you used
those
it.
Songs,
but everyone, see, the whole shop used it, right? The whole shop said.
Oh yeah. Well, they left Crazy Town on, which I thought was kind of.
Yeah, I stepped out for lunch real quick, and I come back, and what I come back to is this mess of a shop where Crazy Town was allowed to happen.
It's because people talked all through the song
about how much
they hated it, and so it had already gone.
That usually means they don't hate it. That's like the 3rd grade. Like, I don't like that girl. I hate that girl. Right. It doesn't mean that. It means something else usually. And you just did 1 song.
I did 1, but honestly, there were more in there I could have done, because to be frank, things like Bare Naked Ladies.
1 week. We talked about.
I just find it that perky. I just
You know,
incredibly irritating. Like I want
Max,
to leave.
we talked about that because that song. The problem is it's on you like a school bus out of nowhere. The way it starts, and once your brain realizes like, oh shit, it's that song. It's too late, and you're into it.
You know what it is? People like songs where this is going to sound general, but I feel like there's a lot of lyrics, a lot of words. So
End of the world.
Because when they learn them, they feel really proud.
Yeah. Max felt really proud about it. He knew the lyrical prowess, and he was telling me about lines I didn't even hear because I've never let my mind hear that whole song.
Oh no,
Golf clubs or something.
Can't do it. And I kind of lump them in with things like Blues Traveler and all that kind of overtly upbeat hippie whatever.
We had Dave Matthews, we had Counting Crows, and
oh man.
And I told everyone in the shop yesterday, it's like I was born in 1970, so I was uniquely and genetically engineered to withstand yesterday better than everyone else. We have people that are younger than me, people that are older than me, but I felt that I was going to be the one that survived, and I didn't. No. I couldn't do it.
We all yeah. I think it's you came around at the right time. I worked, I worked at a record store for all of the night, like all those years. So hearing them in real time and what was big and what was
when certain songs would come on, Hope would say, "Oh yeah, we blasted this one." God. What was that song?
Was it the Creed song? It maybe
My Sacrifice.
One of my more vivid memories is walking into Virgin Times Square and hearing Kid Rock. Oh
God!
I thought I'd never heard anything so huge before. It
Here
was
we
really
are.
like I know it was like that scene where the guy's sitting in front of the speaker with the hair and
Maxell, like the tape, the audio tape.
Walking into this freaking store.
Well, so Bike Shop Radio is back. We're gonna start doing more of these. We're gonna start doing just a little more off the cuff. We'll even do a little more research for you.
You've been warned.
But again, this is just two people that have opinions about music that happen to work in a bike shop. And thanks for listening.
Awesome.
And all right, cool.
Leslie, if you're a real music nerd, you can visit my sad little blog, pickinguprocks.com.
Pickinguprocks.com.
There's another great one I write for, but it's called Cover Me, and that's covermesongs.com, and where we write about every cover version you could possibly imagine, and it's awesome. I'm a fan of it. And
you were a fan, then you were a writer. You became a writer. It's like you were a fan.
Yeah, I'm like that guy who joined Judas Priest, fan.
Wasn't there what was that movie? Was that better?
Marky Mark. I was going to say Mark Wahlberg, sorry.
Joined the band, right. And and the bike shop here, this is 718 Cyclery, so it's 718c.com. Check us out. All right, thanks for listening, and we're hoping to get these out really quick and soon. All right, thank you.